The story begins with a young boy walking through a busy marketplace with his mother, the two of them laughing and chatting about what to have for dinner that night. The boy's father wasn't going to be home, so his mother suggested they just go out and eat. And the kid was totally on board, rattling off all the things he wanted to try. It was a sweet, ordinary moment, but it didn't last long. Without any warning, a loud crash rang out through the market, and people started running in every direction. Then a massive hand reached through the crowd, and the source of the chaos became clear. A demon had appeared, and it wasn't just randomly attacking. It was specifically targeting the boy. His mother grabbed him and ran as fast as she could, but the boy tripped and fell, and the demon scooped him up instantly. It brought him close to its face and told him that it had finally found him, that this was exactly who it was looking for, and it opened its mouth to eat him. But right at that moment, something moved incredibly fast, and the boy was knocked clear across the area, landing safely at a distance. When he looked up to see what had saved him, there was a rooster standing in front of the demon, completely calm and absolutely ready to fight. The demon demanded the boy back, and the rooster told it plainly that it had gone far enough and needed to turn around and leave. When the demon refused, the rooster powered up and hit it with a single devastating attack that wiped it out completely. Back in the past, about 1 year ago, the same white rooster was living among other roosters. Something had been building up inside him, and the next morning he made a decision. He was done staying here. He stood up and announced he was leaving, and his mate, Hen, rushed over to stop him, asking how he could just walk out on her like that. The rooster told her plainly that he wasn't built for this kind of settled, peaceful life. She pushed back, upset, but he didn't budge, and he walked out to wander the world on his own terms. Out on the road, the rooster was pretty content with himself, snapping up a flying bug mid-stride and commenting that bugs like that were actually great for nutrition and tasted pretty solid too. While he was mid-thought about this, two young girls spotted him and ran over, wanting to interact with him. He was already annoyed. He had zero patience for kids. But then the girls started offering him chicken pieces to eat, which caught him off guard in a deeply uncomfortable way. Before things could get any weirder, two boys showed up and told the girls to back off, claiming the rooster was theirs. The girls weren't having it, but the boys grabbed the rooster and walked off. As they walked, the fat boy suggested they just eat the rooster, but the other one said no because what if it was sick? That would be a problem. So the other boy proposed feeding it to his cat instead, which they both agreed was the better option. The moment the rooster heard this plan, he bolted. He darted into the yard of a nearby old man, and through gestures made it clear he was being chased. The old man picked up what was happening quickly enough, and when the boys showed up demanding the rooster back, the old man calmly told them they were mistaken. This rooster had always lived here, and his name was Mr. Cluckers. The boys weren't fully convinced but left anyway. The rooster, for his part, was completely thrown off by suddenly having a name assigned to him by a stranger, but the old man just handed him some food and started talking. He told the rooster about his wife, who had passed away, and how he carried the regret of coming home from his duties 2 or 3 years late. If he'd come back earlier, he might have had more time with her. He mentioned that she used to feed sparrows that wandered into their yard, and feeding the rooster right now reminded him of exactly that. Then the ground shook. A demon was approaching, and the source of it became clear pretty quickly. A man who had been seen earlier standing against a wall, muttering to himself in a blank, hollow way, had been overthinking to the point of transforming into a demon. The same two boys from earlier were running away from the demon, but one of them ended up falling down and getting cornered by it. The old man shields the kid with his own body to protect him. The demon was very close to ending them. At that moment, the rooster jumped between them and told everyone to get back. He took on the demon directly, trading blows with it and at one point gouging out one of its eyes. Then he used a technique, a strange, concentrated sound he could produce from his throat that unleashed a burst of force powerful enough to tear the demon apart entirely. The fight ended there. Everyone stared. The old man said out loud that none of this made any sense. How could a rooster do something like that? The answer came through a flashback. When the rooster's sister had been taken and eaten by a demon in the past, he had screamed so hard trying to save her that he literally ruptured something in his throat, breaking open a vocal structure that gave him that unnatural, destructive cry. And in that same moment, he had caught a glimpse of a tattoo on the demon's neck, a detail he had burned into his memory because he had been hunting for the demon bearing that exact mark ever since. Every demon he encountered, he checked. By the time people looked around after the demon's defeat, the rooster was gone. The old man and the boys wondered aloud who he really was, and the rooster, walking down the road again, was quietly satisfied. The old man had fed him, and in return he'd saved his life, so the debt was paid. He also noted that his name was KG, not Mr. Cluckers the old man had decided to call him. His next thought was that he needed to go back and have a proper conversation with the hen he'd left behind, because he couldn't just leave her crying, but when he got there, he found that she'd already moved on and was with someone else. That hit harder than he expected, and he stood there for a moment absorbing it. Then he turned around and kept walking, moving to the next town. Later, KG was out at sea, sitting inside a basket on the water. A woman was out there working, collecting things from the ocean, and KG had apparently been watching over their basket for them. When they finished, they offered him some food as a thank you, telling him he'd done a good job and they appreciated it. As they walked off chatting among themselves, they wondered who he even was and why he'd been out here for 2 days already with seemingly no intention of leaving. Keiji looked at what they'd given him and genuinely had no idea what it was. He'd never seen this kind of food before and wasn't sure if he should eat it. He decided to try it anyway, and the moment he did, he was floored. It tasted incredible, somehow combining flavors he recognized from earthworms and other things he'd eaten before, all at once. He was clearly impressed. Later, we saw a chick. She was enthusiastically cheering for someone she called Pops, bouncing around and yelling encouragement. 3 other chicks showed up and roughed her up for it, telling her she was being an idiot. The man she was cheering for was planning to sell them all, so hyping him up made no sense. The little chick got back up and said no. He could clearly see how hard Pops was working and that cheering him on was the right thing to do. The others knocked her down again for talking back. Back home, the man handed out food to all the chicks. The little chick, the same one who'd been knocked around earlier, came running excitedly, finally getting dinner. But the moment she got there, the others kicked her away from the food. She stood at a distance, hungry and frustrated, saying she was starving too. But then Pops came over, pulled her aside, and gave her a separate portion. The chick was genuinely moved by that. It felt to her like proof that Pops really did have a good heart. Later that evening, the little chick sat and watched television with the man. There was a hero in the movie they were watching, and the man talked about that hero with a lot of admiration, genuinely enthusiastic about the character's values. The chick picked up on all of it. Then she noticed something. The hero in the movie had a specific tattoo on his back. She jumped up and went around behind Pops, and sure enough, the man had the exact same tattoo. The chick went wild with excitement, bouncing around the man, telling him she wanted the same thing on his back. Pops smiled and said he had something for her, and he took a marker and wrote the word duty on the chick's back. He then explained what duty meant: doing your work properly and always living according to your values and your humanity. The chick took all of that in. The next day, the other chicks saw what was written on his back and mocked her for it. The little chick defended it strongly, saying they didn't understand that it meant something real and it was from Pops, so it was worth something. Then she looked toward the gate and saw something that stopped her cold. Pops was being helped back in by someone, and he had been badly beaten. The chick watched from behind the fence, scared. They learned what had happened through the conversation that followed. A man named Tajima came over, and it became clear that Pops owed Yakuza money. Pops apologized sincerely and said he understood the boss didn't know how to hold back, but he promised he would pay back every cent of what he owed, and Tajima should trust him. Tajima responded by offering him a job at a new business he was planning to open, saying Pops could work off the debt that way. Pops broke down crying at the He was genuinely moved that someone was giving him a path forward rather than just pressing harder on him. Tajima said his piece and left, and Pops kept crying, overwhelmed with gratitude. 3 days later, 2 men showed up at the gate. They were from some kind of lending office, and they told Pops bluntly that he now had a 10 million loan registered in his name. A flashback came flooding back to him. Tajima had asked him to sign a piece of paper at some point, telling him it was just routine business paperwork. Pops had trusted him completely and signed without reading it, and now he understood Tajima had used that signature to take out a massive loan in his name and had disappeared. The men at the gate told Pops with no sympathy that he should have known better, that Yakuza always did things like this to people. Pops stood there with the weight of it crashing down on him, and what made it worse was the history behind it. When he was a child, his mother had told him she'd be back soon and to wait at home. Days passed, then weeks, and she never returned. Over time, the people around him started whispering that she had abandoned him, and he grew up carrying that judgment on top of everything else. All of that came back to him now, and he stood there thinking bitterly about why this kept happening to him, and because he had spiraled so deeply into that despair, he began to transform. The weight of uncontrollable thought and grief was enough to push a person into becoming a demon. As the debt collector started running from the demon, the little chick who had been watching Pops came sprinting toward him rather than away. She climbed right up onto the demon and told Pops to get a hold of himself. Meanwhile, Keiji was outside a restaurant looking in through the window. Inside was a young boy sitting with family. When the boy noticed the rooster staring, he started crying, asking why it was looking at them like that. The restaurant owner was about to chase the rooster away when the rooster spotted a demon materializing nearby. He didn't hesitate and was already moving to intervene. When he arrived at the scene, he found that the demon and the little chick was still up on him, still trying to reach through to him and stop him from doing more damage. The chick saw Keiji coming and immediately tried to block him, pleading with him not to attack Pops. Keiji paused, registering that there was a chick in the middle of all this, but ultimately made his move and hit the demon hard, finishing the fight. The little chick erupted with anger, calling Keiji cruel, saying that Pops was a good man and he had no right to do what he did. But then something happened that Keiji didn't expect. Pops was still alive. His body hadn't been destroyed the way a demon's body normally would be after being struck down. He had survived and had come out of his demon form intact. Keiji stood there quietly, thinking that he had never once seen someone come back from that. If a person transformed, the body was destroyed. That was just the rule. But this man had somehow held on, and he figured that whoever he was, his will to live must have been something unusual. Chick looks over Keiji and realizes he fits the word duty perfectly, fighting strong and protecting weak. She even started liking Keiji. But then KG decided to leave. The little chick was still happy to be with his master again. Then she caught herself. She stopped and asked whether that was really what she wanted. And right then, Pops, still on the ground, exhausted, spoke up and told the chick to go. He said the chick should find her own path. The word duty came back, the lesson Pops had written on her back. Always live by your values and your humanity, and always help others. The little chick looked at KG and started following him. KG told her directly to stop. He didn't like kids. The chick was devastated but kept following anyway. KG slipped away and vanished, leaving the chick alone in a park. The chick wandered around by herself for a while, and when she got hungry, she looked down and saw a worm. She recoiled immediately, insisting she was way too cute to eat something like that. Then she noticed people running. Another demon had appeared somewhere nearby, and the chick's mind clicked into place. If there was a demon, KG would go there to fight it, so if she wanted to find KG, that's where she needed to go. By the time she got there, KG was already in the middle of the fight. The chick started cheering him on from the sidelines. KG finished the job and completely destroyed the demon, but took some damage in the process and was bleeding badly. The chick, somehow, managed to drag him over to a safer spot. KG was barely conscious and asked for water. The chick looked around, found a bottle someone had tossed aside, brought it over, and poured the water in for him. But KG still wasn't recovering well enough, and the chick felt like she needed to do more. Then she spotted a worm nearby, the same kind she had absolutely refused to eat earlier out of dignity, and without hesitating for a second, she picked it up and fed it to the rooster anyway. That was her duty, and that came first. KG's eyes opened. He looked around, and right beside him, the little chick had fallen asleep, worn out from everything. KG sat with that for a moment and then made up his mind. He told the chick when she woke up that if she truly wanted to come along, she could. But if she ever slowed KG down or got in his way, KG would leave her behind on the spot. But the chick immediately kicked the rooster and pointed out that not once through all of this had the rooster said thank you. But before they could talk more, a new chicken arrived with the sole motive to kill KG.